This is gonna be difficult. How the fuck are these guys gonna sit here with 105, 243, 63, 600 hours and say that they don't recommend the game? 1,300, man, come on. 15? What are you guys doing? Why did you play it that long if you don't recommend it? Rimworld, a colony management game taking place on a foreign planet. It's kinda like The Sims, but much deeper and in a sci-fi setting. It puts huge emphasis on the procedurally generated storytelling and the choices you, as well as your characters, make. So a lot of these reviews I'm finding say something along the lines of, I wish there were a neutral option for Steam's reviews, in which case this guy says he gives it a 6 out of 10, which is his idea of a neutral review. 6 out of 10, 60%, that's positive, that's plus. I don't know what's hard to understand about this. Come on, Alexis. Alexis! But I did find one gentleman down here, nearing 1,400 hours in the game, who really dislikes it. So the very first thing he starts out by saying is that this game penalizes excessive wealth. So the so-called storyteller will throw you 8 times the size of your own men against you just because you have a pile of human leather hats in your warehouse. You're forced to stay just above starvation in order to have a chance of defending yourself without using the so-called kill box. Okay, for context, kill box is like a really cheap way of defending against raids. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but it kind of takes a lot of the fun out of the game. The storyteller he refers to is talking about something that helps determine difficulty. In Rimworld, you pick one of 3 storytellers, and then you pick the actual difficulty. The storytellers vary a bit from person to person. Randy Random will obviously make things random. Chillax Phoebe won't send many raids your way. And fucking Casablanca bitch over here is pretty balanced. He's talking about how the size of the raids is determined by wealth, and while it's true that wealth plays a factor, there are a lot of things that play a factor in the raid size. For example, the number of animals, the number of colonists, the buildings you have up, the defenses you have up, and of course, obviously, your wealth. Would it not be unfair if one colonist holding a revolver and one colonist holding a laser tech weapon from the future were treated exactly the same in the game's rating system? I can't find the tweet anymore, but lead developer Tynan once tweeted that one colonist is equivalent to about 14 or maybe it was even 16 turrets, he said, in terms of raid strength. And he used this as a way to say that wealth is not the only factor. It's in fact a pretty small part of what determines the strength of your raids. Next, he says a one-man colony is suicidal because if you get shot on both arms, you won't be able to patch yourself. This argument is kind of like saying that Pokemon as a franchise is garbage because it's possible for you to run a party of only one Pokemon and for that Pokemon to get crit and die. Just because there's a small chance of a predicament that you put yourself into happening does not invalidate the entire game. If you think it's difficult having a one-man colony because there's a chance you'll get randomly fucked by RNG, then don't pick a one-man colony. It takes a lot of patience to play out a scenario that difficult. Up next, he says if you have like 3 colonists, the game still works against you because you need a minimum infrastructure and wealth to escape the planet and win the game. Now, he says win the game here, and in Rimworld there are 2 ways to actually win the game. It's kind of an interesting idea in Rimworld, because Rimworld is a sandbox game. It's like Minecraft. Yet Minecraft is a sandbox game and you can technically win it, just like Rimworld is a sandbox game and you can technically win it. But not many people really try to win it. They try to just create what they enjoy and have fun with the process. And so he says, since in order to win the game you need to build infrastructure, which thus increases your wealth, this will again fuck you over on raids because they're going to be too strong. And it's the same argument as he makes back up here. And I'll say again, wealth is not the only thing that influences raids, it's one of many things. He says, in summary, the game punishes small colonies and players that don't want to manage too many colonists or have a self-imposed maximum number of colonists. To be fair, I also don't really like managing a fuck ton of people, and I usually limit myself to having maybe 5 to 7-ish colonists. Since the number of colonists is actually the largest of many determiners of raid strength, that's never really screwed me over. And ultimately, if you're getting fucked by raids, there's nothing stopping you from just turning the difficulty down. Rimworld is a game that you get out of what you put into it. If you don't want to put in hours to try and get the perfect scenario in a very hard difficulty, then you don't have to. He says the developer of the game actively looks for strategies used by the players and creates a random event for the sole purpose of preventing people from using that strategy. For example, you can't build bases dug into a mountain now because giant insects will sprout from the ground even if you plate the floor with steel. So what he's saying here is that he's upset that Tynan tried to balance the game more by patching strategies that he considered to be overpowered. Building under a mountain was too safe, you weren't able to be raided by mortars, and when raiders had to dig in, they could dig through a straight tunnel and you could set up a shooting range waiting for them on the other side. It was simply too strong, they had to change it. He talks about how he doesn't like the game's mood system because there are very small things about it that annoy him. Like for example, when a miner is working in the mine, it'll be too ugly of a place and he'll get a debuff for that. I agree that's pretty annoying, but it's just part of the game. And the debuff too ugly will never be enough to actually do anything to the character's psyche unless it's stacked on top of multiple other debuffs, which could then make them break mentally. I like how he ends it with, "This game is amazing." Alright, Lisa the Painful. This is an RPG with simple turn-based combat made by just one guy. It's one of those games that people play more so for the story than the gameplay, and it includes a lot of really heavy themes like genocide, rape, abusive upbringings, and so on. Alright, first one. Nowadays it's become a bit more accepted to dislike Undertale, or simply have it be not your thing. But giving criticism to Lisa, its darker, more mature counterpart it's often compared to, seems entirely blasphemous. Can we talk about that comparison? I cannot fucking stand that comparison of Undertale and Lisa being like opposite sides of the same coin or whatever. I think it's really unfitting and honestly kind of disrespectful to both Toby Fox and Dingaling, because the only similarities between the two are that they were developed by one guy and have very retro-feeling graphics and music. If we could just take a minute to stop comparing these two and look at them as individuals, then that would be awesome. Thanks for that, by the way, Matt Pat. So something I'm immediately noticing with a lot of these reviews is that people seem to not really enjoy that the game has this jarring change in tone between when it's trying to be funny and when it's trying to be serious. Like, this guy uses the example of when you accidentally light 5 children on fire, but then there are other very serious themes in the game, and the two clash pretty damn hard. They both kind of subtract from one another, is what a lot of people are saying. What I'm saying is that you can't have it both ways. Be the deep, mature game about trauma, or be the zany, nihilistic murder romp. You can't suck the cock and call everyone else gay too. What? Interesting story, but the gameplay is highly repetitious and boring. Unless you are a big fan of turn-based combat, you should probably avoid this game. Hey, well lucky for you, Heisen, cause I love me some turn-based combat. Dingaling is not a subtle storyteller. He tells things only as they appear to be rather than what they imply. For many people this is enough, but for me it just doesn't work. There is no right or wrong way to tell a story, but in the context of Lisa, with its serious subject matters, abuse, rape, genocide, death, etc., these kinds of subjects are just not suited to such a simple approach. This is why the game fails, and why its unfitting, absurdist humor, on top of its lack of subtlety, is the nail in the coffin. I mean, he says it himself, that there's no right or wrong way to tell a story, and I don't think Dingaling made this game with the intent to drive a message that everyone could apply to their day-to-day lives. It's more so just a story about shitty people in a shitty world getting from point A to point B. Lisa is all over the place and doesn't work on any of the fronts it sets out to explore. Honestly, I thought the gameplay was really nice. I had a good time with Lisa, and I really liked the story as well. Yes, the gameplay was simple, yes it was repetitive, but I didn't go for the 100% completionist playthrough where I would get bored of the game incredibly quickly. I just played through it for the story, and I enjoyed what it had to offer. So much so that I did get the DLC and play through the expansion. Alright, to conclude, you're all dumb, but I am smart and right.